Hello and welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. You're with your host Maria and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Thanks for coming and listening in, especially if you're like me and you have your children home on school holidays right now. My two are very much in quiet, pottering, chill mode right now. They're just kind of doing their own thing and you kind of see them when they gravitate towards the kitchen again and want more food, which is, hello, quite frequently. But I think they really needed that break, so it's quite timely. So if that's you as well, hopefully you're navigating the holidays with as much grace, ease and joy as you possibly can. And it's great you're able to listen to this episode right now because it's so good. My guest today is Megs, or Meghan Crawford, and she has the most contagious, magnetic, wonderful energy. You'll just be listening to her and you just cannot help but smile and get enthusiastic and wanting to do great things. She just has this capacity to really light people up, and it is one of her superpowers. She has quite a few. So you will listen in here, but just know that she's got two wonderful daughters. She has recently left the corporate world and is now an entrepreneur. She has her own organising business, and in the last few years, she has been recently diagnosed with ADHD. So she talks a lot about navigating that as an adult, what that looks like. But because it's new for her and she's been on this big learning journey, she's so generous in her wanting to share her knowledge and what she's learned with others to make their journeys easier, really. So I learned a lot. So if you know of anybody or you yourself have ADHD or children, you'll get so much from this. In fact, I think it's almost required listening because we can all learn something from this. And I most certainly did. So, yeah, enjoy. And without further ado, I bring to you the beautiful Megs. Megs, welcome. Welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. Oh, so
Thank
good to
you so
see
much for
you.
having me. I'm
Oh,
so excited to be here.
yay. Oh, I am so excited that you are joining us. And where are you actually joining us from?
I live in Colorado, so just south of Denver, Colorado, and I am what 12 hours behind you. You're in the future right now in New
Yeah, I'm in
Zealand.
the future. I'm in the future. I think it's even more than 12 hours. It's
Yeah,
7 a.m. in the morning. And
it's
yeah, it's
crazy.
it's really crazy, bizarre.
Yeah,
Hey, do you want to share a little bit with us about your entry into motherhood and what that looked like?
yeah, I'd love to. Um, oh, so my husband and I decided that we wanted to have kids pretty much immediately. And I got pregnant with our first daughter, who's 6 now, almost 7, on our wedding night. And we found out after we had gotten back from our honeymoon, and I will never forget there was a day on the boat where I had had so much tequila the day before, and the day that we took a boat over to an island across the ocean in Mexico, I was so sick beyond belief. And I came back, my doctor told me that I was pregnant, and I said I had tequila, and she goes, "It's fine." It was just cells splitting at that point in time. So, of course, I started my pregnancy thinking I had ruined my child forever. But no, she's perfect. I was not a happy pregnant person. I was probably the worst. I complained about everything, but it was also because I was sick constantly. I never threw up, but I was just constantly nauseous, and that
It's
was
the
throughout the
worst.
entire pregnancy. And I mean, I tried everything. I tried medicine and I tried, the bands on your wrists. And once we got closer to the end of it, my feet started to expand and swell in ways I had never seen before in my entire life. I looked at my doctor one day and I was like, how soon can you get this baby out of me? Because she can't live in here anymore. Like, please get her out. Um, and while I didn't want to be pregnant anymore, I could not wait to have her in our lives. Her name is Charlotte. And the day that she came, I actually had her at 37 weeks. And my feet were so swollen one day, and I was supposed to go into work. I texted my boss. I said, "Hey, we got to just swing by the hospital real quick so to figure out what's going on with my feet." And I went in, they put me under all the tests and wires and whatnot and diagnosed me with preeclampsia. And at that point, she was in the breached position. So we had considered having a C-section, and I think I was nervous about that, but I was also so scared about having birth naturally as well that I had no idea what to expect. I was just like, "Can you just knock me out and then somehow get this baby out of me?" I was so scared. I was just so scared of that prospect. I'd never really talked about it. And I was definitely not as spiritual as I am today. And I think the birthing process for me today versus 6 years ago would be so different. But because she was breached, because I had preeclampsia, um, they decided to do a C-section at that point in time. So I didn't go into work that day. I stayed out and um it was an awful experience. They were cutting me open. They had, dosed me up on all of the things to make me not feel anything, but they had also given me, I think it was magnesium to lessen the symptoms of preeclampsia, and I was throwing up on the table as they were cutting me open, and it was horrific, and my poor husband was in there holding my hand, but they took Charlotte out of me, and she wasn't crying right away because and she was gray. I remember him telling me this story. He's like, "I didn't know what to do. She was over there and you were over here and neither of you were okay." And so he was going back and forth, and finally we heard her sweet little cry, and she was born, and I love the hospital that I gave birth at. They took incredible care of us, and, we were there for a couple days to ensure that we recovered well. They did skin to skin, which was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, and gosh, she was an angel baby. She was just so sweet, and she slept when she needed to sleep, didn't cry. I mean, she cried when she needed to. Um, I was able to breastfeed her probably for about 7 months, and it was awesome. Because she was such an easy baby, so to speak, and I can say this because I have 2, and I'll tell you about her in a second. Because she was such an easy baby, my I was able to stay home from work. I believe it was for I took longer, because I had saved some PTO, and then I decided to take some unpaid time as well, and luckily, the job that I worked for at the time was very, very supportive of that.
Right.
Um, but as I was staying home, I actually started a business, sign making. So I was making signs for people so that I could stay home with my baby and take care of her. And I had her in May, and I didn't go back to work until September. So I was so, so grateful for that time with her.
Mm. Mhm.
And the journey going back to work it was hard. It was just really hard, and I was trying to pump at the same time. I would drop her off, and then I had to coordinate my schedule to ensure that I was producing enough, but truthfully, it just didn't work out. It was like another job.
Yeah.
I had this job of taking care of my baby, but then I had to store all this milk, and I tried to build up a little bit of a storage before I went back to work, and that was depleted pretty quickly.
Mm.
And that was pretty devastating because that connection that you have when you're breastfeeding a child, it's like no other. And I respect any woman's journey, right, of breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, but I really wanted it to last longer.
Yeah.
And but I mean, she was just really awesome. And we decided to have our second baby pretty shortly after. Probably took us a couple more months instead of like right on the dot to get pregnant our second time. And I was just as miserable then as I was with my first pregnancy. My poor husband. He's a gem and he's wonderful and so supportive. And it's crazy because she came at 37 weeks as well. And we had scheduled the C-section because it was something that we knew and I was familiar with. And her scheduled C-section was 2 weeks beyond that point, but I went into labor one night. My husband was actually working at the same company as me. I went and picked up my daughter from daycare, and we're standing around his desk waiting for him to be done, and he got stuck on a phone call for work for 2 hours, and so we went out to eat. Meanwhile, I'm in labor at this point, and I can feel the contractions, and I'm trying to take care of our daughter at the same time. But I had in the beginning, probably it was actually I just got a reminder on my phone that I had contractions. At this point, she was born at the end of April, but this day, we're at, February 23rd. 5 years ago, I was in the hospital with contractions, having, like, and it was back to back. They were so close, they were monitoring me, I was in there overnight. So, when I was in labor with her, I had no idea because I just thought it was the same thing over again.
Yeah.
And, but the C-section this time was a much more pleasant experience. I did not have preeclampsia, and it was incredible, and she was born, and it was so fun to introduce Charlotte to her sister Cora. And one of my favorite memories is we had this nurse that came in when Cora was born, and she's pregnant, and I'm like, "Why does she look so familiar? This is so strange." And I looked at Adam, and he's like, "Yeah, she looks so familiar." And I'm like Winona Ryder, maybe she's got this famous face or something. But no, she was actually the same nurse that took care of us when Charlotte was born in the same hospital. She was pregnant when Charlotte was born, and she was pregnant when Cora was born. So it was hilarious how yeah, it was just,
Yeah.
it was beautiful how that worked out, and I felt so comfortable. I remember, Cora was and is a much more difficult child as far as the crying goes, and we didn't know if she was allergic to gluten or dairy, and I gave up everything, and our breastfeeding journey was longer, and it was beautiful, and it was much more difficult having a second child and going through that journey.
Mm.
And I had to navigate postpartum during that time as well. I had postpartum depression very severely, and it was awful. And so, and I love that it's such a talked about thing now. And even then when I was going through it, it was something that we talked about as far as mental health goes. And I think even more so as we went through COVID, because it became such a thing that is accepted because we all have brains and we all have health that we need to take care of up there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I had a really hard time with both of them, and I was in denial about it, and I had a really hard time even though they were beautiful, angel, amazing babies, I had a hard time connecting to being a mom at first.
Yeah.
And I have more recently found out that that's a thing that can often happen in women with ADHD, which I did not know that I had at that point, but now know in my motherhood journey that I have. But it's very common amongst women with ADHD that they have depression, anxiety, and can be much more susceptible to postpartum anxiety and depression. So I wish I knew then what I know now, but
Yeah.
it's very helpful to be at this point and to know what I've been through. And I love having these conversations because if I can share that with any other mamas out there who are going through that, I think
Yeah.
that's so important and why.
Absolutely. Because that's I've just learned something just there. I didn't realize that either. And,
Yeah.
I've worked with quite a few, well, many women over the years, and um, quite a few of them have had postnatal depression in some form. And yeah, that just puts a whole nother layer, another spin on things. So did you seek support, or did you receive support in any way as you're trying to navigate that, even before the diagnosis? Like, did you, what happened?
Yeah. With my first daughter, with Charlotte, I talked to my doctor about it. But I have this thing that I do where you diagnose me with something and then I'm like, "No, no, you're wrong." I did it with ADHD too. But when he had diagnosed me with postpartum depression, I assumed that he was incorrect, and I had taken I he prescribed me a medicine that I could take while also breastfeeding, and it made me feel so awful and so out of body that I vowed that I would never take anything like that again. And so I did not so then I put boundaries up. I wanted to protect myself, and I didn't realize that getting help could protect me and help me so much more than putting those boundaries up. I didn't realize there were so many more options out there. I just thought it was kind of a one and done thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't take medicine and I just worked through it, right? I just lived through that experience. With Cora, it was different because I had talked to more people about that experience and I shared with them how negative my initial experience with taking medicine was. And I was curious what that would look like in the future if I were to take medicine again. And I was able to work with a doctor who found me something that was much more mild and something that helped me cope with more anxiety than it was depression. And
Mhm.
helping to work through that anxiety. I think one of the biggest things for me was I was a doom thinker. When I had my girls, I just kept thinking of all of the awful things that could possibly
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And so like my husband would leave the house and I was like, "Don't you dare leave this house without vowing to me that you will be the safest driver in the entire world and that this is the safest you've
Yes.
ever been."
Yeah.
And then my brain would take me on a journey through that, and that was really, really hard, but I've learned to cope now through medicine and then, of course, through, having a therapist and really talking through, why my brain does that, So it was a journey, and I'm thrilled to be on the other side of that, and it's much easier to talk about now than it was then, for sure.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's interesting that whole being able to talk about it. And it's good that with Cora, you're able to have more conversations, but it's a bit of a lonely journey because you think, is this just me or is this normal? Does everyone experience this? Am I going crazy? I think even if it's not even postnatal depression, I remember having a shower and my baby's in the just the very next room and I would catastrophize what could happen. So it's like the quickest shower on the planet because
Right.
I'm worried that something is going and I in my mind I'm thinking, this is ridiculous, Maria. What are you doing? Like
Yeah.
but I couldn't help those thoughts and those feelings of something's gonna happen to him. It was
Right.
just quite and they come out of nowhere and it's not something I've ever really experienced before. It's quite yeah, I didn't have it with my second, but my first, I definitely had like lots of random thoughts like that. So I don't know, and we don't really talk about them either because it sounds like you're going a bit crazy, if you like. But
Right. I'm
I
so
think,
glad that you can relate though, because I do feel like so many other moms can. The more I talk about that, the more moms are like, "Oh no, no, me too." So maybe
yeah,
it's like a defense mechanism or a way that I don't know, some subconscious thing that we do as moms because now we have a human that we have to take care of. We have to think about all of these things that could go wrong so that we protect ourselves, but
yeah, yeah, and
that's
this fierce mama bear protection. It's like when you're breastfeeding, if you're not with your baby and you have if they're somewhere in another room or maybe they've gone with dad somewhere and you have a
yeah,
letdown and you're like, oh, is it I'm thinking of them or no, they're hungry. They need me. And it's this whole,
right?
I need my baby back. Where's my
Yes.
baby? Yeah.
Exactly. It's that instinctual reaction. Yes.
Yeah. So something within us to make us, you know, protect and look after these babies. You can see it in all of the animal kingdom. They do it. And then they get to the point in that, and I'm done. I've done my work and you're on your own.
Right.
Humans, it's kind of it goes for many decades in some case. I don't know if they're
Yes.
ever on their own, but yeah, it's interesting. It's I'm glad that in the end you're able to get the support and in that it sounds like more awareness as well with
Yeah.
yeah it's so how did the ADHD diagnosis did that happen during that time or was this later?
Later, so about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so I guess My older daughter was almost 5, my younger daughter almost 3, and like the postpartum depression, I was very much in denial at first, and my therapist and I were talking about it, and I said, "Doesn't I just thought everyone's brain worked the way that mine did." And she's like, no. You're no." And so, uh, and I was like, "You don't procrastinate things?" And she goes, "No, I have a very strategic plan on getting things done 3 weeks ahead of time." And I'm like, "This is mind-boggling to me." I just thought that, yeah, I just thought that everyone's brains were a little bit frazzled. And it was the more I learned about it, it's not just a diagnosis, it's and something to call it, right? Because I think initially that's what I thought, and I thought there was something wrong with me. So, okay, well, now this is what's wrong with me, and I'll try to understand it, except that now I understand that there's nothing wrong with me. I just simply have a different way of my brain working. And the more I understand my brain, the more I understand how to organize my life in a way that helps me thrive and
Ah,
helps me get to the places that I need to be. So now that I have a name for it, I can do more research and figure out, okay, well, my brain lacks the dopamine that it needs, that people who are neurotypical get regular doses of, And so
mm,
now I understand it in a way that, like, if I'm going to search for a snack, am I looking for a dopamine hit or am I actually hungry? So now I can start to ask these questions to break it down. And when my brain starts to work in overload because it goes fast, 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 it's on a runaway train somewhere, I now have the tools with which I can say, okay, you could go down that train, Megan, but you also know that you're still a human and that there's only a certain amount of things you can get done today. So break it down into one thing that you're going to do right now, and you can build upon that. And that's how I've gotten to where I am today. And um, yeah.
oh, I love that. I love how you just articulated that so clearly because it just makes complete sense. And I love how you reframed it. It's not a disability. You can make it, you just have to work with it in a different way so it can best support you. And, oh, that's so helpful for me to understand. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Mind you, that procrastinating thing, I'm pretty good at that too. So,
Oh, excellent. Good. I'm glad we can relate on that.
yeah, I think is it kind of like a almost like a spectrum of more severe or more, just you have tendencies or everybody that has ADHD, it all will experience a similar way of processing information or the
As
varying.
um As a non-doctor, here's my answer,
Yeah.
because I think everyone should consult a doctor, but as I have heard it, it's a spectrum of sorts, kind of like autism, and I think a lot of people with autism also have ADHD, so that's a whole 'nother,
Yes.
thing. But, yeah, I mean, from in my own experience, I see people with ADHD and we talk about so many things, but there's some things that I do that they don't, and there's some things that they do that I don't. And so I do think it is truly varying. And actually, the last podcast interview I did with someone, she said that her doctor had described her ADHD as not necessarily on the edge of the spectrum where it's so severe that she would need medicine, but she can take it and it can help her, things like that. So
Right.
I definitely think that that's the case, and that was another thing that was really difficult for me in the beginning is that I thought I had to fit into this box now that was ADHD,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, well, that makes sense. That's me. That's not me. That's me. That's not me." And so then I'm trying to do all of this, like, compartmentalizing because that's what my brain loves to do and can thrive on, except that I realize it's your brain. Like, it's a part of your personality. And
Mm.
so it's not it's not that we all do the same things, although there's certain things in our brain that are helping us, I don't know, do things a certain way,
Yeah.
and we're not the same. and that you can't put any of us in a box because while I love to organize and I love helping people get organized because I figured that's my way of thriving, there's other people with ADHD that literally just want to draw and paint all day. And that's their primary goal. That's the only thing they want to do. And that's where they have harnessed their creativity. And I find it very fascinating. Yeah, I just find it fascinating. There's so much that I don't know. And I'm so excited to be having the conversations because I learned something new, even down to and you'll love this. I met with a woman who is a fertility coach, and she was talking about her ADHD. She manages it with supplements, but she said that sometimes the supplements don't work for her at certain times in the month because it's a cyclical process. Our
Mm.
hormones were on a 28-day cycle, right?
Mhm.
And I told her that my medicine actually doesn't work a week before my period. And I'm like, that's fascinating to me because I have to recognize when I can do certain things. So she actually plans out her month based on her cycle so that she can understand where her brain is going to be and how she can manage certain things.
I do love
So,
that. I love
is
that
that
so
crazy?
much.
I know.
Yeah.
I should totally hook you up. You would love
Yeah.
her. You would
Yeah.
absolutely love her.
Yeah. It's, I think, regardless of what else we've got going on, if we can get in tune with that cycle as women and sort of take that, it's more empowering to know where we're at and honoring and really being in tune with our bodies, knowing what's, because so many people are like, why am I feeling a bit blah or a bit doolally? And then suddenly the period comes like, oh, after all these years, you'd think I'd know, but no, I don't.
Right.
And it's so many people say this. And we're just so, it's sort of really pushed into a little box of inconvenience that happens, once a month. Whereas if it was just more of a natural, well, it is a natural thing, but there's so much stigma and shame attached to it still. I mean, you've got two little girls, and I've got a daughter, and I really want to rewrite that story for them. That
Yes.
it's a beautiful, natural um, experience rather than this taboo type thing. So yeah, I think the more we can get in tune with our bodies and our cycles and understand them and honor and respect them, have that quiet time when we need to, and in the ovulation stage when you're like, yes, I can do anything, like bring it on.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's coming though. I think there's more and more conversations, and I think this is it. It's having conversations about all of these things and just putting it all out there. And many people are like, oh, right. And hopefully relate and take from it what they will. And who knows where that leads to. So I'm so pleased that you're able to share your journey. And I know this is going to help other people. And it already is because so from that diagnosis, is that what led you into your current business, or were you already doing some of your mindful megs organizing before that?
um, I have been on my own personal decluttering journey for about 8 or 9 years. Um, and And it really just started from, like, when my husband I moved out to Colorado from Boston and, which is super far. It's like a 3-day drive from the East Coast out to Colorado, and I packed everything that I had owned in my Prius and, tried to strategically place everything that I could possibly place in there. I left all my art supplies with my parents, hoping that I would see them again one day. But, I moved out here and I met my husband probably within a couple months of living out here in Colorado, and then we decided to move in together. So now we're combining all of these things that we've had solo, right? So like we've got 2 sets of silverware and 2 sets of plates and things like that. And initially, I kept everything because I just didn't know another way. And I had so many emotional attachments to things that I didn't know that you could let go of things and actually grow from letting go. So it wasn't until I saw Marie Kondo on a Netflix special. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
incredible. And then I started watching videos on minimalism, and I thought that you just had to have nothing and live that way, but minimalism and decluttering looks different for everyone, which made me feel so good about what I was doing. So I started learning how to sell on Facebook Marketplace and downsize in a way that worked for my family. And then as I was leaving the corporate world, I had just gone on a visit to see my parents in Massachusetts, where I'm from originally, so the East Coast again, and I helped them declutter and just saw the emotional toll that stuff had on their life, and I decided that I wanted to make a bigger impact. And one of my purposes in this world is to help people believe in themselves. And I just want them to see themselves in the light that I can often see in people, right? And I believe people are good. I believe they're kind. I believe they want to do well in this world. For me, so long, I thought that I had to be a certain way, and I thought I should be doing this and I should be doing that. But now I know that I can do whatever the heck I want. I just have to put myself purposefully in those directions.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where that stemmed from. And so now I help people declutter, I help them organize. And specifically in the ADHD space, I love having the conversation about organizing your brain both
Mm.
digitally and in your space, like physical space, so that you can thrive and you don't have to make so many decisions because that decision fatigue can be so detrimental for I know for me with ADHD, there's so much stuff and so many decisions that I have to make when I look at something that I would put it off. So now that I've let go and I'm working on continuing to let go, it's become so much easier to focus on the things that I want to do.
Oh, so good, Megs. Like this is so needed just for everybody. Just that emotional fatigue. Is that the term you use? It's
Decision
amazing.
fatigue. Yeah,
Decision,
but it
yeah.
is it like you know how when there's so much going on in your brain, there's so many things you need to do, right? You get so exhausted from that.
Mm.
But oftentimes, and there's research done on this, is that if you look around your space, look at all the stuff in your life, and how is that correlating to what you have going on in your brain? In fact, I have noticed this so much, I've become tuned to this, is that I'll look in my living room and I'm organized, right? Because I have so much less stuff. Everything has a space, but it doesn't mean I'm not messy sometimes. Like my house is not perfect and I have kids and I want them to play and do things, but I will notice if my house is messy and like I see things not put away in their specific spots, I think about what's going on in my brain and I think about how I'm acting and reacting to the world around me right now, and oftentimes, like, both correlate with one another. Whereas if my house is put together, everything's put back to where it needs to go, oftentimes I am so much more focused in my brain as well. And so that is a direct correlation that I've noticed, and it's fascinating. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's so true because I think my tolerance for mess, if you like, is higher than my husband's. I do like things to have their place and be organized and ordered. However, I
Mhm.
can handle it for if everything's out of place for a little period of time or I'm okay. But he really, he's not. He needs, he likes everything to be clean lines and, just very organized and things put away. He doesn't like the stuff. So I know when he's like a bit stressed or if he's a bit out of sorts, I will not say anything, but I will just kind of make sure I'll put things away or just it's not even about the space that he's stressed. It might be from work or his brain is full of whatever. But
Mhm.
I know a way of helping him is just quietly go around to make sure that, the spaces are clear of clutter or whatever. And I
Yeah.
can see it in him. He's like, he can relax. It's
That's
quite
beautiful.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But it's really interesting because we have two children, and my son is probably more like him. And so his room is like a army barracks, bed made perfectly, like nothing's out of place. He keeps getting rid of stuff. There's not too much in his room. Maya is like the treasure collector from all treasure collectors. So she's
Yes.
like me. We love like little rocks and feathers and little treasures that you find in nature. And so
Yeah.
she loves that sort of thing. So her room is organized, but it's got lots of stuff in it. Like all of her treasures have a place, but there's a lot of them. So the contrast is huge. And I guess I'm probably more like Maya and my husband's more like Jack. It's just interesting how, yeah. So I can see how to have that clear brain to space to do what you need to do, your spaces need to be clear. More so for some people, like my husband. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, no, it makes
totally. Oh my
sense.
gosh, that's so funny. I love that
Yeah.
you do that. What a great partner he has in you.
Well, not. Yes, that's right. um,
Have him listen to this part.
yeah, yeah. He probably will. Love you. Yes. That is. It's just I notice it, and it's not. I don't know if he actually notices it within himself, but it really stresses him out when he's already stressed over something else, and that's just a way of. I guess it's coming to that home space, and home is safe, right? So that's where you can come in to be and relax and get rid of the day, wash the day away or the conversations away that you've had. And if that home space isn't feeling safe, so to speak, or inviting, then you're feeling like, where do I go? My brain's full, my house is full, where do I go? So, yeah. Mm, it's,
Yeah, and your home should be your peace. One thing I've read is like your entryway, or even like the door that you use to come in and out of your home, that should be the place that brings you a lot of joy. Like you should have colors there or things that make you happy because that sets the tone as you leave the home and as you come home. And I thought
yeah,
that was fascinating. So, like, if you have a mess right there as you leave and you're going to come right back into it, like you're walking into all of these decisions that you have to make either now or you're going to put them off. But no matter what, it's going to stress you out. It's going to add that additional load to your
yeah.
brain.
That makes sense because often at our place, there's always shoes being chucked off in that area, and I don't like it. I don't like that's something that I don't like. I don't like the shoes all cluttering up that space. I want to come in, but we have a little table on that entrance, and we always have a. It's kind of like a little seasonal table, so to have a vase of flowers or something that um, replicates the season, and it might have a
Oh, I
few
love that.
um, treasures, if you like. But they just
Yes.
it just indicates the season or the impulse of what's happening in our little worlds at that time. But it's usually quite it's kind of like an altar, if you like. But
Yeah.
I like that to be as it is rather than people chucking their keys on it, or it's like trying to keep that space a little bit sacred. So I guess it is that as you're walking into the home, that's what you see, and it's just that brings me joy, makes me happy seeing
I
that.
love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if you have something there that doesn't belong, it detracts from it. And so,
yeah.
yeah, there's something to be said for putting things away where they go because it helps so much.
Yes. Yeah, it really does. But it does help having other people in your home or workspace, wherever it is, to be understanding of that too.
Mhm.
You know, if it doesn't have the same importance for somebody else. Oh, well, you like that little space, but I still am going to put my coffee cup and my keys and my whatever on there. And it's like, not really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it's
It's funny,
conversations.
and I was just gonna say that. So one thing that I make sure to insist upon when I'm following up with a client is if you don't communicate the systems that we've put in place or the things that you need from your partner, then things might not work out the way that you want them to. And I tell this story because I think it's perfect because even me, I have trouble communicating because I would love for people to read my mind, and that's not necessarily the case, right? So part of communicating can be putting labels on things, right? And I think labels are so great in certain aspects. You don't have to label your whole home, but like in the pantry, for example, it's great because then people can see this is where something goes because it has a name. But my husband took down
Mm.
the Christmas lights and put them in a pile in the garage, like on a shelf somewhere. And I walked out and I was like, Okay, so I have a decision to make here. I could be very reactive, right? And I could be like, why the hell would you put this here? You big dope. And I love you so much. But why would you think that these go here? I've told him this story, so he's allowed to listen to this and be totally cool with it. Um, but I was like, but the truth is that he doesn't know where they go. He didn't ask me where they go. And it's not very clearly labeled anywhere where the Christmas lights go. And so I came inside and I was like, I announced, this is me communicating with you what I need from you. So I said, these Christmas lights have a space. They go downstairs and they're in a dark box and it says Christmas lights on it. And that's where we're going to put them each year. So the next time that you take down the Christmas lights, if you could please ask me if there's a space to go if you're not sure if I've changed things, or simply put them back where we originally got them from. That would help me so much because then I don't have to then make a decision about the things that you've already done. And so he's looking at me like, you're crazy. But also, it's great because the more we communicate that stuff, the better we can work together. And it's worked out really nicely. And so that's something that I do as we're organizing and downsizing and working through the house. I even do it with my children. Like, hey, this is what I need from you because otherwise it could cause me anxiety. It's anxiety from this stuff, not you doing something, but if you could help in supporting this, that would be really awesome. So that is, we're working on it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Communication is key in every facet of life, but this,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it just shows. And it's something that a lot of people don't do as well as they possibly could. It's or being worrying about hurting people's feelings or how it's going to be received, and so you don't say it. But by not saying it, you're the person you're hurting is yourself. So, yeah, communication is so important. So
Yeah.
important. Yeah. So, Megs, that your business, did you did you go through a period of you have your children and you're still working in the corporate world and they're in childcare, and well, how did you transition from that world into your current world?
Yeah. It was difficult. But I had my my Charlotte at the time was in kindergarten last year prior to me leaving. She's in first grade now. And Cora was in kind of like a preschool, but we had to pay for it, so it was daycare. But when I left my job, they were both home for the summer, and we had intermittently had them in camps here and there. So they were doing a gymnastics camp and this camp, and I decided initially when I left that I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was gonna take a month off regardless. And I was hoping to have a job by, like, a month later, right? So I had this whole plan in mind, and, they were gonna go back to school, and I was gonna work from home. I was working from home at the same time, which if you think you can work from home and also have kids there, no matter how old they are, it's so distracting, especially for ADHD when I'm
Mm.
focused on something and then people know that mommy's home and that they could ask her for something. Like it was hard. I mean, they would come in meetings and people didn't mind and I appreciated that and I got way more comfortable about it towards the end because I am a mom and I am at home and my kids happen to be here sometimes too. But it was hard. And so as I left the corporate world deciding to start my own business, I really wanted to figure out, and this was part of my vision, is how can I be a mom and be present for everything? Like all of the plays and the school events and volunteering and also run my own business. I decided that like I feel like there's everyone out there says you can't have it all and I'm like, "Okay, well I'm going to try it. I'm going to figure out how I can make this work." And so initially I had Cora home with me half days and I was trying to build a business in the morning and oftentimes Bluey would take over unfortunately and Bluey would watch my child. And that did not work out very well, and I tried to cut out TV, and there were so many different things I tried to do, and in the end, we've gotten her just this year into a full day care where she's in pre-K, she's thriving, she's got amazing kids her age, she's playing outside and inside, and I have more time to focus on my business. So it's been hard because I don't want to say goodbye to them in the morning, and they always tell me they miss me and they want to stay home with me. And I am so proud of them going and learning and doing what they need to do so that I can be home to learn and to build upon what I've been building. When they come home, it's it's our time. It's our family time. And even if mommy and daddy are on their phones, Charlotte and Cora are allowed to ask if it's important and tell us that we need to put our phones down if we have to. So, we're
Mm,
we're good at communicating that. And so, even just this last night and into today, yesterday, Charlotte came to the grocery store in the morning for me with me. We needed coffee. We had to run to the grocery store, but we went to the bargain book section and we found these fun science books for 1st grade and pre-K, and we brought them home, and the girls have been working on them for 24 hours. And it's been so fun because I took a picture of us this morning working on them because it's just they're asking us for help, and they're they're thriving, and it's really, really it's so fun to watch them grow. I'm so proud to be their mom. And but it's been crazy navigating being a mom and also having ADHD. So, and we think our daughter who is 6 has ADHD as well. So that's, yeah, it's been a learning experience, and every day is we learn something new.
yeah. Oh, so beautiful, Megs. I just love how open you are and receptive to ideas and thinking, okay, it's like everything is workoutable. There's a solution for everything, and it might not be the one size fits all solution, but there's a solution, there's a way around that. And it sounds like you're well on the way to getting that balance of, that inner desire to spend more time with your children, your family, and the knowing when the corporate world job had come to its natural, completion. Um, I think because some people will either ignore that and just push through because it's a safe place, or listen to it and just be thankful for the experience and that opportunity and that time, and then it's time to move on. So it sounds like you're really good at listening. You're in tune with what you need and expressing them, which is really, really amazing.
I
Um,
think, well, I just wanted to say, my family is my top priority. And so before, when I worked in the corporate world, I would work came first and then everything else fell around it. And this year, my husband and I sit down every single month. We sat down at the beginning of the year and planned out all the things that we wanted to do. But more importantly, every month we take a look on what what do we want to start, stop, and continue, what went really well. And then we plan out the next month. So we plan out a zoo trip every single month because we have a membership to the zoo. We make sure that we have date night every single month. We make sure to we put all the things in there that we want to do as a family first, and then
nice.
everything else gets to fall around that because that's our priority. And that has worked out really, really well for us. I love it.
I love that. That is so beautiful. So, so good. And as you're speaking, as you're sharing this, listeners can't see it, but you are just glowing. When you're talking about your family like that, there's just this sparkle in your eye. It's so, uh, yeah, you've really got that flow, that balance really bang on. So, oh, well
Oh,
done.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you want to oh, do you want to share with us about so you have your business,
Mhm.
um, but and now your latest venture in the podcasting world. Do you want to share a little bit about that so everyone can tune in and listen to your
Yes.
amazing interviews?
Yeah, I would love that. So, my podcast is called the Mindful Megs Podcast, Organizing an ADHD Brain. And originally, I wanted to just talk about organizing and how that can help you thrive, right? I talked a little bit about that today, but really the podcast is about, yes, organize your brain, figure out how to declutter, and you will have so much more space to thrive. But I talk to a ton of people with ADHD and have them share about how they're thriving. What did they do to organize their brain? Because, like I said earlier, it's not a one size fits all type of thing, and the more we understand and learn about how our brains work, the better we can do. And I first started believing that ADHD was a superpower when I heard Simon Sinek. He talks a lot on leadership. He's written a bunch of books, but he talked about having
Mm.
ADHD and he called it his superpower. And I was like, "What? I've never heard about that, and that's incredible." And then I read a book called Faster Than Normal by Peter Shankman, and that was incredible, and he called it his superpower as well. And I'm like, "Okay, so we need to make this more of a thing." And so that's what we talk about. We talk about organizing your brain, finding the tools that help you thrive, and really how can you harness your ADHD as a superpower and not as a thing that brings you down.
Oh, amazing. So good. And your interviews, yeah, the interview with Peter Shankman was amazing. So, yeah,
Yes.
tune in, everybody. So good. It's just, yeah, I'm learning so much and it's really helpful, in hindsight, because I was a teacher for many, many years and you think, gosh, okay, so many things make sense now,
Right?
these children. You're like, oh, if only. But anyway, it's happening now and that awareness is happening now and that these conversations are happening now. So it's good. It's good. And what you're doing is so amazing, Megs, because it's just um that portal for people to find and to feel like, oh, I'm not alone. It's not just me. Yeah. On all levels of that spectrum. And I'm probably on it somewhere too. So, it's yeah,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, yeah. So in amongst all of this, you're very family orientated and your business, all the different balls and you juggle and hats you wear. What do you do for you that fills your soul? What's soul filling for Megs?
Yeah. Something that I guess I'm always kind of reiterating what I want to do in the mornings, but I wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning. And the first thing I do is start with a mindfulness meditation for positivity during the day. I try to incorporate affirmations in there as much as possible. And then I'm always doing a vision for my future. Like, what does my future look like, feel like, and how can I incorporate that into my day today? And then I always learn something during that time as well. So if I'm working on my podcast, I'm learning something. It could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Whatever I'm learning, I put on 2 times speed because that's how my brain can follow it. It just helps me stay because my brain has to focus in order to follow that fast paced talking. But like this morning, I'm reading The Alchemist because 2 people have told me over the last couple months that I should read The Alchemist. So I have it on 2 times speed and I'm coloring at the same time because it helps me stay focused on listening. And then I'm also doing something with my hands. So I'm not trying to pull up my phone and scroll on it and get that dopamine hit right
So
away.
good.
So those
Yeah.
those are the tools that I follow, and then normally so if my girls aren't awake yet, I'll try to stretch that time until, like, 6:37. If they're awake, then everything gets put away, and I focus on cuddling and loving and talking about how it's gonna be an amazing day, but that is my me time. My husband's up at that time too, and it's fun because we both have these gigantic noise canceling headphones where we focus on ourselves, but we're still able to be together. Um, and then another thing that helps me so much is yoga. I yoga is my practice. I've been practicing since I was in my early 20s, so probably I don't know, 15 years now. And it helps me get into my space of being me so much more. And something I practice when I am doing yoga and the mantra I repeat to myself is you are exactly where you need to be. Today you are
Mm.
exactly where you need to be. And that's very calming to me because when I'm thinking of all of these adventures I'm building for myself, it's hard to not be there yet. Except that
Yes.
I don't wanna be there yet because I have so much to build still before I get to those points. Build, in mind and body in preparation. And so today I'm exactly where I need to be, and that's what keeps me going.
Oh, oh, I love that. And it helps us really focus on that journey, it's not the end, not the destination really, is it? It's just that the journey. So making that um as joyful as possible because that's where the that's where the work actually is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful, Megs. Thank you so, so much. There's so much in here. I'm gonna re-listen again, and I'm sure other people will as well. And I will add all of your links and where people can find you into the show notes, because I'm sure they're going
Awesome.
to want to. What's your main platform that you use, that you're quite active on, that people can contact you?
Oh gosh. Well, my website is mindfulmegs.com, and you can
Mhm.
get to all of my platforms from there. All my socials are linked. I probably share the most ridiculous things on TikTok and my, thoughts off the cusp. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram pretty regularly as well. So, but yeah, TikTok, mindfulmegs.com. That's where you'll be able to find me.
Yeah. And honestly, everyone, when you go and see the work that Megs does, like, I'm waiting till I can afford to fly her to New Zealand to come and organize my house.
Yes, oh my gosh, I will
Uh,
just do it. I will just I just wanna fly there and do it all and play with your piggies outside.
yeah, those little piggies. Oh, Megs, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, I really look forward to following your journey, because it's very inspiring, and it's going to be a help for so many people. So thank you.
Yay, and thank you too. I just wanna say the work that you're doing in this podcast is amazing, and just having moms share what their experience is because it's a part of us. It's a part of who we are and what makes us
Mm,
us. We all
yeah.
have other things too, but yeah, it's so good that we're able to hear these stories. So thank you for having this platform.
Oh, thank you, Megs. Thank you. Isn't Megs just wonderful? Her energy is incredible and a gift for everybody. Like I said, one of her superpowers, well, she's got many superpowers. Um, but I love the way she talked about harnessing ADHD as your superpower. It's not a thing that brings you down. And when you can reframe that, it just puts it in a whole different light. And I think that's with everything in life. When we reframe our situations, our experiences, we can see it from a whole different perspective. And I love how she brought that in, because it's one of the big things I work with too, working with clients, is that reframing. It's not always easy. It's like a muscle. You have to keep exercising it and keep practicing. But yeah, I love that she said that. I'm sure you'll each have your own takeaways from this episode, whether it was more on the supporting yourself with postpartum depression, whether it's the ADHD, whether it's the organising, whether it's, who knows, so many different things. But I've just got a couple in here that I'll add in now. Number 1, break the things down you need to do each day. What is the one thing you can do right now, and then build upon that? Number 2, minimalism and decluttering look different for everybody. So don't get hung up on how it should, air quotes, look. Number 3, so much stuff in your home correlates to how much is going on in your brain. Acting and reacting to the world around a messy house is like a chaotic brain. An organised home, a calm mind. 4, working from home with children who are at home with you is difficult. It's not easy. So it's finding that balance of the work, home, children dynamic. It's important. And 5, decision fatigue can be so detrimental. We can be so exhausted from all the decisions we have to make. So it's really important to recognise this and work towards eliminating some of that stress that we put on ourselves. And last one, I just put in how she mentioned the scheduling, how when Megs talked about family being her top priority, and she schedules in her, the date nights with her husband and family outings and trips, and as well as scheduling her own workload in terms of her business and her own podcast, what she needs to do. So really helpful things in there, so much in there. I have actually re-listened to this quite a few times, not just for creating the podcast, but just there's so many little pearls in there. So go and follow her, listen to her podcast. All of her details are in the show notes. You can particularly go to her website and everything. All her socials are in there as well. She does so much and she's so inspiring. And like I said, one day I'm going to get her to fly to New Zealand and she can come and organise my house and maybe my brain sometimes. Anyway, everybody, have a beautiful, soul-filling rest of your day and week ahead, and I will see you again soon.